Caseus, Jedi Redeemed. Chapter 19. On Yavin 4, Gaidom sat up in his bed. He had been awake nearly half the night on a few hours of rest. His wife asleep beside him. Slowly, he looked at her and softly smiled. As difficult as things had been in the past few months, Sanja was still there by his side day in and day out. Though matters had since become a bit more complicated. Reaching over, Gaidom put his hand on Sanja's stomach, feeling the light kick of their soon-to-be child. It was a shock when he found out. Not long after the mission to Terrace, Sanja told him that she was pregnant. On the one hand, this should have made him happier than ever. On the other, he feared that adding an infant to the picture would complicate matters. Still, Gaidom was happy. He did want to be a father. Regardless of the complications posed by this situation, Gaidom loved Sanja, and he would be there for her and the baby. For now, though, he needed to clear his head. Putting on a shirt, he walked to the hangar and looked out at the early morning sky. Still dark. No sign of light. The cool air blew past his face as he sighed deeply. He thought about Caseus. There hadn't been a peep of information on his whereabouts. Nothing. He was a ghost. Same with Liara. What's worse, tensions were higher now than ever. Rumors and reports of some secret Imperial project were stirring throughout the halls of the temple, but nothing that could be verified. How did it come to this? Hey. Gaidom turned to his left as Bendel walked over holding a mug of caf and scratching the thick stubble covering his cheeks and neck. You couldn't sleep either? Nah. I've been filing field reports and scouring comm channels across the Rim trade route. Got sick of hearing nothing. Need some caf? Sure. Bendel walked over and poured a cup for Gaidom and brought it over as the two of them stared out at the stars, hearing the birds calling out from the forests. Gaidom sipped the hot drink and looked to Bendel. Any updates from Vec and his men? Couple scraps with the Empire out past Ord Cantrell. Got some whispers of Imperial activity tighten up past Kindyan. I'll put in a report to Captain Andor and let him know. He's got some business out there to attend to. Anything on Caseus? If I knew, I'd tell you. No word on Liara either. It's too quiet lately. It's the calm before the storm. Something is coming. I can sense it. How's Sanja doing? As well as can be given the circumstances. Keep the comm channels open. Let me know if you find out anything else. Gaidom. Yeah. I don't need to be a Jedi to see that something else is bothering you. Gaidom finished his drink and sighed. I've never been a father before, Bendel. And on the brink of a war, I don't want my child growing up like I did. Running from the Empire. That's why we're fighting, isn't it? Zaturi told me when we joined the Alliance that no one is safe until the Empire is stopped. Right now, we're all that's standing in their way. Go get some rest. Try to sleep for more than a few hours. I'll let you know if anything comes up. Crash and Tosa will be up before too long and we can help Pip with the Nebulous. Won't be long before it's flying again. Okay. See you later, Bendel. Gaidom left Bendel and made his way back to his quarters, gently lying back beside his wife who moved closer, resting on his shoulder. It took a while, but before long, Gaidom fell back to sleep. On Abafar, inside a repair shop, Caseus sat and tinkered with an old transmitter. Even in the shade of the garage, the heat from outside caused beads of sweat to run down his forehead before dripping off the tip of his nose onto the floor. A rusted joint from the transmitter was giving him more trouble than he cared to admit, as he gripped his tool harder, trying to budge it loose. As he strained, the tool slipped, causing him to slice his finger on the metal, dropping the transmitter that shattered, sending parts across the floor. Gripping his finger, Caseus whispered an expletive before kicking his stool over and grabbing a cloth for his cut.
Buffa! Dinner!
Caseus sighed and bandaged his cut before heading next door to the diner and sitting across from Uga and a few other workers who were adding salt and seasoning to their dishes.
Buffa? Salt?
Caseus nodded and took the salt, adding it to his food. He had no idea what Buffa meant, and he didn't care enough anymore to correct her. As he forced down his meal, Caseus overheard two patrons arguing.
Nah, I'm telling you the truth. And I'm telling you that your mouth is spewing more muck than a Zaka frog. Please. Planet killer.
Caseus slowly looked over his shoulder at the two aged men.
All I'm saying is it ain't the craziest thing I've heard. I knew a guy, real knowledgeable about his history. Says they had the same kind of tech in the old Republic. Then your friend is as loony as you.
Caseus suddenly felt a metal spoon tap his hand as his attention was drawn back to Uga.
It's rude to eavesdrop, Buffa. Eat. You need energy. Big day ahead of us tomorrow. Shipment of minerals heading out to Prakit tomorrow. You help men load.
Caseus nodded and finished his meal. I'm going to turn in early. Keys are on the desk.
Night-night, Buffa.
Heading out the door and down the small street, Caseus made his way back to Uga's abode, sat down on his bed and closed his eyes. Sleep, eat, work, sleep. This had been his routine day in and day out for the past 4 months. If it had been that long. The days on Abafar seemed to blend together. For all he knew, he could have been there 4 years. As he slept, Caseus dreamt of Coruscant, of the life he used to have, of all he was and all he could have been, all he should have been, all he wasn't. As his mind drifted through the ghostly halls of the Jedi Temple, he heard something.
Caseus.
The voice sounded so familiar, so calming.
Caseus.
As he heard the voice call to him, the images in his mind began to change. The temple crumbled to fire and ash. He saw Skywalker marching, leading the 501st. Then they too began to fade, as he saw his friends, Gaidom, Bendel, Kresh, Tosa, Pip. They were all running in fear. He tried to reach out to them, talk to them, until he saw what they were running from. In the sky, a blinding green light enveloped the atmosphere as the ground and everything around him began to disintegrate into nothingness. He saw his friends disappear, enveloped by this terrible light. As the light faded, he saw something else. A sunset, cresting over the mountains of a distant world. An ancient structure carved from stone. He walked closer. Whatever was in there called to him. He had to see it. As he crept closer and closer, the sun set, and everything was enveloped in darkness. Then, his head shot off the pillow.
Tython.
His forehead was drenched in sweat as he grabbed his shirt and dabbed his face. Tython. Why Tython? The birthplace of the Jedi had been abandoned for thousands of years. There was nothing there. Why was he being called there?
Buffa! Breakfast.
Caseus looked out the window and back to the door. He chalked it up to another bad dream. As he ate, however, he could still hear the voice in the back of his head. He could feel the call inside his soul. What was he going to do? Why now? Too many questions, and not nearly enough answers. Back on Yavin, Gaidom was looking over field reports. Suddenly, Bendel barged in, pushing over a protocol droid and nearly tripping over a cable on the floor. Gaidom! Gaidom! Gaidom turned in surprise. Bendel, calm down. What's going on? It's Liara. Gaidom's eyes widened as he ran with Bendel to the comm center, where the young man quickly entered a code into the terminal. Soon, a voice came over the system.
This is Liara Cinda. I need help. Please. I managed to escape from the Empire, but they're looking for me. Please, Bendel. I know you can hear me. I need your help. Head to Rusan. Don't let them take me again.
As the transmission faded out, Gaidom stared at the holomap. I'm getting the Arabella prepped. We need to head to Rusan and get her out of there. Bendel, I don't think you should go. What? Why not? It's too easy to be an extraction. I think it could be a trap. I'm willing to take the risk. If it isn't a trap, I'd be leaving Liara to die out there. If she did escape, what if she didn't? Weigh the options here. Bendel, if it is a trap, then you're going to be outnumbered and outgunned. We can't risk everything on the slight chance that she's being genuine. You mean you can't risk it? I can. I'll go alone if I have to. What if it was Sanja begging for help? Sanja didn't try to have us killed. Sanja didn't interrogate you. I can't in good conscience let you go. Then it looks like I'm going without you. I'll take my men, Kresh and Tosa, and we'll get her out of there and bring her home. You're making a mistake, Bendel. And I can't help you if something goes wrong. Bendel stood in the doorway and turned back to Gaidom. Zuturi would have taken the chance. That's good enough for me. If something goes wrong, then it's on me. Bendel left the comm center and made his way to the hangar. Kresh, Tosa, get ready. We have a lead on Liara. She sent a distress signal. We're going after her. You think that's a good idea? What if it's a trap? I'm not willing to let her die out there if it isn't. Knowing you, I guess you prefer to stay here? Tosa chuckled and slung his rifle over his shoulder. Don't jump to conclusions, boy. If this is what it takes to get out of this place for a little while, so be it. Besides, with Zuturi gone, someone has to keep you from getting yourself killed. Come get me when we're ready to leave. Bendel raised an eyebrow in surprise as Tosa left to make preparations. Kresh nodded to Bendel and left to do the same. On Abathar, Caseus' head was pounding. He couldn't get the voice out of his head.
Buffa, no slacking. Mineral freighter will be here in a moment.
Uga, I'm really not feeling well right now. Just please get off my back for a moment.
Buffa better watch attitude. Uga do a lot for Buffa.
Uga left as Caseus frowned. The voice became louder and louder. Soon, the only thing louder was the sound of the mineral freighter as it arrived and landed at the docking port. Caseus and Uga walked over as the two men exited the ramp and began offloading cargo containers.
Buffa, help them.
Caseus nodded and walked over to the ramp and stepped inside as he began to offload the crates of supplies and provisions. As he did, he looked over at the cockpit. The voice in his head called his name louder and louder. Caseus couldn't ignore it anymore. Turning to the men and Uga, he cleared his throat and spoke up. Uga, I can unload the rest of this stuff. These guys look thirsty. Why don't you go get them a drink? The men nodded as Uga looked at Caseus.
Be quick, Buffa.
As Uga left with the pilots, Caseus offloaded a few more crates until he was sure they were out of earshot. Then, with a deep breath, Caseus ran back into the ship and closed the ramp. Looking into the bag on his back, he saw his lightsaber inside. No time to grab extra clothes. It was now or never. Running to the cockpit, he ignited the engines as the freighter slowly lifted into the air. Down below, he saw Uga running out, jumping angrily up and down as the two pilots yelled at each other. Soon, Caseus was out of reach and flying into the sky. Down below, Uga groaned as the two pilots kicked the dirt and sighed angrily.
Uga need workers. You two need work?
Jumping to lightspeed, Caseus set a course for Tython. He didn't know what he would be looking for when he arrived, but he knew that he needed to find it. Back on Yavin, Bendel and his crew, along with a few rebel soldiers, hopped aboard the Arabella as Gaidom watched them carefully.
Last chance to join us, Gaidom. We could use you.
I can't. Good luck, Bendel.
Bendel nodded as the ramp closed and the Arabella took off into the sky. As Kresh put in the coordinates to Rusan, Tosa cleaned his rifle and looked at Bendel.
When we get there, what's the plan?
Haven't thought that far ahead. Guess we'll have to be ready for anything.
I'm starting to regret this decision.
Our primary objective is to find Liara and bring her back to Yavin. She needs us, Tosa.
Something tells me there's a little more to this.
Bendel rolled his eyes.
It's as simple as that.
Sure, I can already see it. A nice big reunion ending in a clumsy kiss.
Shut up, Tosa. Keep an eye on the scanners.
On Yavin, Pip walked over to Gaidom.
I still think I should have gone with them.
Don't worry, Pip. Besides, you're needed here.
Did you put the tracker on the Arabella?
Yeah. You think they'll get into trouble?
I hope not.
Caseus soon arrived on Tython and brought the freighter down through the atmosphere. Even from this high up, he could feel the ancient energy of the planet. So much history, all long since forgotten to time. Setting the ship down, he stepped off and looked around. He wasn't sure where to go. Seeing a rocky hill, he climbed to the top to get a better look around. The view was amazing, like something out of a painting. Then, shielding his eyes from the sun, he saw something. The same ancient structure he had seen in his dream the night before. A large spire made of stone jutting from a large hill of rocks. That was it. Making his way down the hill, he began the trek across the ancient dirt-covered paths. All the while, he heard whispers through the force, echoes of spirits long departed from the realm of the living. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but he had to stay focused. This was no time to explore. By the time he reached the spire, the sun was setting behind the distant mountains. Looking around, he saw nothing. Caseus sighed. Why was he here? Sitting down on a rock, he saw a small breeze blowing a cloud of dust towards the base of the spire. Looking close, he saw a crease in the stone that went around in a large circle. A door. Calling upon the force, Caseus carefully pushed the stone door as it rumbled and moved inside the spire and to the side, revealing an ancient stairwell leading downwards. Carefully, Caseus followed it downward, keeping his hand on the wall to guide his steps. It wasn't long before he was walking on flat ground and came to a cave with a pool of water in the center. Light poured in from above and shone down into the rippling surface of the water as Caseus stepped forward and looked at his reflection. He no longer recognized himself. Every time he looked in a mirror, all he saw was a jaded failure, a tired, weary man. Sitting on his knees, he sighed and hung his head low, hitting the water with his fist. What was he supposed to do?
Caseus.
Caseus opened his eyes and looked back at the reflection. As the ripples calmed, he saw the reflection of a woman with white hair and tanned skin. Slowly, he looked up. There, right in front of him, glowing with a pale blue light, was Master Takai.
Master Takai?
Caseus. My dear boy.
Caseus shook with fear. He thought he had finally snapped and gone crazy. She was dead. But here she was. as clear as the day he last saw her.
What is this? How I saw you die.
Master Takai smiled gently to him.
The ones we love are never truly dead, Caseus. Though my body perished years ago, my spirit lives on.
Cassius' eyes overflowed with tears as he bent over, his face nearly touching the ground.
I thought I'd never see you again. Life has been so terrible since you passed. I've been so alone without you.
As he cried, Master Takai approached him, kneeling in front of him, as she slowly touched his cheek and lifted his face to look at him. The boy she trained so many years ago, now grown.
You're not alone, Caseus.
Cassius could feel her touch. Not like the touch of a human, but it was there. And it was more than enough for him at this moment.
I'm sorry, Master. For everything. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I couldn't save Corbin. Sarah. I'm not the Jedi you wanted me to become.
I never wanted this life for you, Caseus. I never wanted any of this to happen. I long dreamt of the day I would see you training your own pupil in the temple, passing on your knowledge to another, teaching them, nurturing them, caring for them, as I cared for you.
Cassius sat up on his knees and looked at her.
I tried, Master. I really did. Liara. I tried to teach her the way you taught me. But I'm not like you. You were wise. You were strong. Fearless. I'm none of those things. Not wise enough to foresee the dangers we would face. Not strong enough to protect her from them. And I'm more afraid now than I've ever been in my life.
Caseus, everything happens for a reason. The true test of a Jedi's spirit comes at their lowest moment. What happened in the past can never be undone. The damage that has been caused, and the lives lost. What you need to ask yourself now is what you will do next.
Cassius shut his eyes and wiped his tears.
What can I do? I'm no match for Vader. And Liara has been twisted by him. A slave to his will. I'm lost. Whatever choice I make, I know that I'll fail.
Caseus, as your master, I was determined to mold you into something more than what you have become, more than what the universe has made you. You made a similar promise to Liara. Even now, when the dark side clouds everything, there's still a chance to save her soul from the clutches of Vader.
Cassius looked into her eyes. The same kind, loving eyes he looked upon so many years ago.
But how? What must I do?
You must embrace your destiny, Caseus. Embrace who you are. You are a Jedi, one who stands against the powers of the dark side, even when all seems lost. If you do not find a way to save Liara, if you stray from the path the Force has set before you, Liara will truly be lost.
Cassius thought about her words. He did make a promise to Liara. He promised to train her, to mold her into a greater Jedi than he could be.
What about Vader? I can't defeat him.
You don't need to defeat your enemy to overcome them. Step into the waters, Caseus. Trust me.
Cassius looked at Master Takai as she floated over the surface of the water. Taking off his tunic and gear and detaching his cybernetic arm, Cassius slowly stepped into the cold, refreshing waters. Deeper and deeper, until he was submerged. Closing his eyes, he meditated, hearing distant voices as a vision slowly came to his mind. He saw Vader. He was fighting someone. A young man with blonde hair. Vader was on his knees, his hand gone. The young man held his green lightsaber to Vader's throat. Then, as soon as the vision had come, it vanished, and Caseus opened his eyes and shot to the surface of the water and crawled back to the shore, coughing. Master Takai appeared beside him.
I saw Vader. That boy. Who was that?
I couldn't tell you, Caseus. I am only here to guide you.
Caseus sat and stared at the water as the light from the moon shone down upon it. It was clear to him now. All of it. Defeating Vader. It was never mine to do.
The fall of the Empire may yet rest on the shoulders of others, but Liara is your responsibility.
Caseus stood and attached his arm, putting his tunic back on. Then, he turned to his master.
I know what I have to do then. I'm afraid to do it.
Master Takai walked closer to Caseus and looked into his eyes.
Confronting fear is often the greatest challenge in life. To overcome it, you must let go.
Caseus nodded. Taking his lightsaber from his bag, he looked at it and attached it to his belt before slowly looking back to Master Takai as she smiled softly and put her hand on his cheek.
Will you be with me?
I never left you, Caseus. I never will. Before you leave, I have one final lesson for you.
The Arabella had soon reached Rusan. Bendel sat by the comm channels.
What's taking so long? Liara, where are you?
Tosa growled softly.
Something isn't sitting right with me. We need to head back.
We need to wait a little longer. Captain Tyron, scanners are detecting something emerging from hyperspace.
Looking out the window, Bendel's blood ran cold as an Imperial Star Destroyer emerged from hyperspace, directly over them.